Imagine this. While Washington tightens its technological stranglehold on China, from high-end chips to cutting-edge AI software, on the other side of the globe, Huawei, a name once blacklisted by the US, quietly unleashes a new weapon of war in the tech arena. Not a smartphone, not a 5G base station, but a heavyweight AI chip named Ascend 91D. Born in the crucible of sanctions, this chip is introduced as a direct rival to NVIDIA's H100, the iconic symbol of America's AI dominance. And this time, Huawei isn't just making bold claims. The first leaked technical specs have left Western experts stunned. Competitive performance, optimized power consumption, and the ability to train massive AI models, all from a company that, just a few years ago, was reeling under comprehensive US sanctions. Has the game shifted, or is this merely an inevitable move in an unending tech war? Join Top 10 Discoveries Official as we dive deep into the specs, strategies, and grand calculations behind the Ascend 910D, the latest bullet China has fired in the century-defining AI battle. Looking at what Huawei is achieving today, it's easy to forget that less than 5 years ago, this company was the prime target of America's tech war. Since 2019, Washington has placed Huawei on its entity list, banning US firms from selling critical components and technologies like chips, semiconductor design software, EDA, and even mobile operating systems. Simultaneously, many US allies restricted or excluded Huawei from key 5G projects. Cut off entirely from the global supply chain of advanced semiconductors, especially chips from TSMC and equipment from ASML, Huawei was forced to fend for itself. They dove into developing their own processors, the Kirin series, their own operating system, Harmony OS, and crucially localized AI solutions, from hardware to software. As the world races into the era of next-generation AI, where models like GPT-4, Gemini, and Claude 3 are driving an explosion in computational demand, Huawei faces a do-or-die challenge. Without its own AI chips, it risked being sidelined from the most transformative tech revolution of the century. Unable to directly access NVIDIA's A100 or H100 GPUs, the brains of modern AI, Huawei had to forge its own path. And that's when the Ascend project was aggressively accelerated with a clear goal: to build an independent AI computing platform that rivals the West. The Ascend 91D, launched in April 2025, is more than just a chip. It is Huawei's technological manifesto that even under the harshest sanctions in modern history, China can survive and even strike back into domains where the US once held absolute dominance. To date, Huawei has not fully disclosed the official technical specifications of the Ascend 901D. Key metrics like computational performance in FP16 or FP8 standards, power consumption, specific manufacturing process, and detailed architecture remain under wraps. However, based on analyses from industry experts and international media, a relatively clear picture of the power Huawei is pursuing emerges. Drawing from earlier Ascend models, particularly the Ascend 910, launched in 2019, we know Huawei achieved 256 tera floating point operations per second in FP16 and 512 tera operations per second in INT8 with a power draw of about 350 watts. With the Ascend 910D, designed to compete head-on with NVIDIA's H100, which dominates the market with 60 teraflops in FP16 and up to 700 teraflops in FP8. The expectation is that Huawei must deliver a chip not only more powerful, but also competitive in critical metrics like energy efficiency, internal networking, and software support. Yet Huawei faces immense technical barriers. While NVIDIA produces the H100 on TSMC's 4N process equivalent to 4 nanometers, the Ascend 91D is likely manufactured by SMIC using N+1 or N+2 technology, roughly 7 nanometers. This is a direct consequence of US and Dutch export bans on advanced chip-making equipment, forcing Huawei to optimize within a technological framework 2 to 3 generations behind. Beyond that, production yield is a critical challenge. Reports on the Ascend 91B suggest yields range from just 20 to 50%, abysmally low compared to the approximately 90% yield TSMC achieves for NVIDIA's chips. Low yields mean higher production costs, supply shortages, and difficulty meeting the demands of mass-market production. On power consumption, the Ascend 910D is projected to maintain a power draw of around 350 to 450 watts, lower than the H100's 700 watts. However, this isn't necessarily an advantage. The H100, despite higher power use, boasts exceptional performance per watt, thanks to its advanced manufacturing process and architectural design. If Huawei only reduces power draw without boosting performance per watt efficiency, the Ascend 91D will struggle to compete in high-density computing systems like modern AI data centers. Another critical factor is the software ecosystem. While NVIDIA dominates with CUDA, cuDNN, and TensorRT, a near-monopoly trio of AI development platforms, Huawei's MindSpore and CAN, though existent, lag far behind in adoption and optimization, especially for complex AI applications like large language models, LLMs, or multimodal models. In terms of internal networking scalability, NVIDIA's H100 leverages NVLink and NVSwitch, enabling GPUs to communicate with ultra-high bandwidth, a prerequisite for training AI models with billions of parameters. Huawei has yet to announce a comparable interconnect system for the Ascend 91D. Without this, the chip will face significant limitations in large-scale AI training, a core growth area in the industry. Despite these technical shortcomings, the strategic significance of the Ascend 910D cannot be overstated. In a context where China is barred by the US from accessing advanced AI chips like the H100 or B200, Huawei's development of the Ascend 910D, flawed but functional, is a bold statement. Beijing is ready to break through the tech blockade, no matter the odds. More broadly, the Ascend 91D is not just a chip, it's a symbol of China's technological independence strategy. A first, rough but resolute step on a long road to challenge America's absolute dominance in the AI era. Under the weight of sanctions, cut off from Western advanced semiconductor and AI technologies, Huawei could have been destined for a prolonged technological decline. Yet reality tells a different story. Not only has Huawei survived, but it is quietly transforming into a new tech powerhouse, steadily closing the gap with giants like NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD. Names once deemed untouchable. The launch of the Ascend 910D, an AI chip designed to go toe-to-toe with NVIDIA's H100, is powerful proof. Though full specs remain undisclosed, the mere audacity to claim competition with the H100 sends a strong signal. The Ascend 91D doesn't rely on cutting-edge 4nm processes like the H100, but is largely built on SMIC's domestic 7nm technology, a feat given China's ban on importing advanced EUV lithography machines from ASML. Despite these constraints, Huawei is accelerating, planning to test the Ascend 91D by late May 2025, with ambitions for mass production soon after. In terms of investment, Huawei shows it's not outmatched by America's massive spending. While NVIDIA eyes a $500 billion plan to expand global AI infrastructure over the next 4 years, Huawei is backed by the Chinese government with up to $30 billion to build new chip manufacturing plants. Moreover, through the third phase of the Big Fund, China injected an additional $47 billion into its domestic semiconductor industry in 2024. Much of which directly or indirectly supports trailblazers like Huawei. The pace of development is equally striking. In just 3 years, the number of developers in the Ascend AI ecosystem doubled from 900,000 in 2022 to 1.8 million by mid-2023. Huawei's successful production of a 7nm chip for the Mate 60 Pro phone under stringent sanctions shocked the global tech industry, sparking a surge of optimism among Chinese semiconductor firms. In raw capability, NVIDIA still holds an absolute edge, with $130.5 billion in AI revenue in 2025 and a market share of 70 to 95%. But crucially, Huawei is crafting a methodical strategy, not just focusing on hardware like the Ascend 91D, but simultaneously developing the MindSpore software ecosystem, the CANN framework, and investing in machine learning platforms, edge computing, and AI-optimized cloud computing. This is a fill-the-gap strategy that the West struggles to fully contain. No one denies Huawei still trails NVIDIA or AMD, particularly in areas like next-generation HBM memory or software optimization for massive models. But that gap is narrowing at an astonishing rate. The combination of political resolve, massive investment, internal unity, and a disciplined development strategy transforms Huawei from a mere survivor into a potential game-changer in the AI era. If it sustains this momentum, Huawei could not only dominate China's domestic market, which accounts for over 1/5 of global AI demand, but also expand into emerging markets where companies seek alternatives to US tech dependence. A new game has begun, and Huawei, forged in the harshest pressures, is revealing potential that makes the world wary. If this pace continues, Huawei may not just close the gap with NVIDIA and AMD, it could reshape the entire map of power in the global AI and semiconductor industry. First, Huawei is running a relentless, strategic race with unprecedented state backing from China. With $30 billion invested in chip infrastructure alone, plus resources from funds like the $47 billion Big Fund Phase 3, Huawei is building not just chips, but an entire self-reliant ecosystem, from architectural design and material production to software and AI platforms. Second, from 2027 onward, Huawei is predicted to shift from domestically produced 7-nanometer chips to 5-nanometer and even 3-nanometer processes, using next-generation lithography technology developed in China. If successful, this would be a seismic global breakthrough, the first time a high-tech industry under sanctions achieves self-sufficiency, bypassing the blockade. Third, in market terms, Huawei has shrewdly built a massive domestic consumption network. Devices powered by the Ascend 91D will be prioritized for China's national AI infrastructure, from smart cities and AI healthcare to autonomous vehicles. Localizing the entire consumption chain allows Huawei not just to survive, but to thrive in revenue despite international sanctions. Fourth, in software, Huawei is heavily investing in MindSpore, a counterweight to NVIDIA's CUDA. With 1.8 million developers in the Ascend ecosystem by mid-2023, projected to double by 2027, Huawei has a real shot at breaking the global monopoly on AI programming tools. Huawei is becoming a national symbol of China's technological self-reliance strategy. If this trajectory holds by 2030, the world will no longer be a playground for US companies alone, but will witness the rise of a formidable Eastern tech superpower, directly challenging Washington in its core battlegrounds. If the Ascend 91D were merely a new chip, it might not garner such attention. But behind Huawei lies something far more concerning for the US and the West, a comprehensive AI ecosystem quietly taking shape in China. Beyond chips like the Ascend 91D, China has built foundational components for the entire AI value chain, from hardware infrastructure and software to data and applications. In hardware, alongside Huawei's Ascend series, China boasts Baidu's Kunlun chips, Alibaba's Hanguang AI chips, and heavy investment from defense firms in domestic GPUs. Numerous chip factories, backed by the $47 billion Big Fund Phase 3, are rising to serve the domestic market exclusively. In software, China has developed native AI frameworks like Huawei's MindSpore and Baidu's Paddle, aiming to replace US-controlled TensorFlow or PyTorch. MindSpore now has over 2 million registered developers as of late 2024, a remarkable growth rate from its starting point just 3 years ago. In AI models, China isn't sitting out the race. Models like Baidu's Ernie Bot, Alibaba's Tongyi Tianwen, and SenseTime's SenseNova have reached performance levels comparable to GPT 3.5 in many domestic benchmarks. And they're being widely integrated into e-governance, healthcare, and finance across China. In data infrastructure, dozens of hyperscale data centers, like massive complexes in Guizhou and Inner Mongolia, have sprung up, powered by domestic AI and supported by ultra-high voltage power grids. In practical applications, Huawei has begun deploying Ascend in numerous domestic sectors, in healthcare, aiding analysis of X-ray and MRI images with localized AI, in transportation, integrating into autonomous vehicle systems and smart city surveillance, in education and finance, processing big data with the Ascend cloud ecosystem. This isn't just copying the West, it's forming a new AI tech order entirely made in China, capable of existing in parallel and independently of the US-European system within a few years. The Ascend 91D, therefore, is not just a technical endeavor, but a piece of a grand strategy to build complete AI sovereignty, one that could reshape the global tech balance if successful. And while the US controls chip exports, a bigger question looms. Are these sanctions inadvertently accelerating China's self-reliant rise faster than anyone predicted? In the 20th century, technology was the West's undisputed trump card. From the first transistor at Bell Labs in 1947 to the internet that shaped the globe, the US always set the rules of the game. But the 21st century is witnessing a silent earthquake from the East. China, with companies like Huawei, is steadily rewriting this order. The US-China Tech War is no longer confined to sanctions or a simple semiconductor race. It has become a geopolitical struggle for survival. Whoever masters AI infrastructure will lead the global digital economy and control data, the resource more valuable than oil in the new era. Since 2019, the US has imposed sweeping measures, blocking Huawei's access to advanced chips, EUV manufacturing equipment, and chip design software. But instead of collapsing, Huawei, almost miraculously, has held firm, even counterattacking, rolling out domestic 7-nanometer chips, the Harmony OS operating system, the MindSpore AI platform, and now the Ascend 910D, a direct strike into NVIDIA's territory. For the US, Washington has realized that the technological supremacy it once took for granted is no longer assured. The $280 billion CHIPS Act was passed to revive domestic semiconductor production. NVIDIA, Intel, and AMD are receiving hundreds of billions to advance AI, semiconductors, and supercomputing. The US is also urgently forging new tech alliances with Europe, Japan, South Korea, and India to encircle China's supply chain. Yet China is not alone. The Digital Belt and Road Initiative, Asia-Africa data center networks, and an AI-first strategy are helping Beijing build a parallel tech ecosystem, independent of the West, where chips like the Ascend 910D will form the backbone. This showdown is no longer just about hardware, it's a battle of ecosystems. AI platforms, cloud computing, 5G/6G standards, IoT device networks, and cross-border data flows. If Huawei succeeds in popularizing the Ascend 91D and its MindSpore AI ecosystem, not just in China but in emerging markets, the global tech power balance could shift for the first time in nearly 80 years. No longer will every high-end chip bear an American label. A bipolar tech era, US versus China, may take shape. In this context, every chip launched is not just a technical product, but a card of power on the global chessboard. At this moment, the most alarming thing isn't how powerful the Ascend 910D is. It's the speed at which Huawei is advancing, even under stringent sanctions. As the US accelerates domestic investment, China is building a parallel, self-reliant, and increasingly sophisticated tech order. The AI race is no longer just about computational power. It's about survival in a new era where AI, semiconductors, and data will determine who leads the world. What about you? Do you think Huawei can truly rise to challenge America's tech dominance? Or will the US hold its crown against this new wave from the East? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring the hottest developments in the global tech race, follow Top 10 Discoveries Official, where we don't just report news, we decode the future.